The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges, Buckner,
Excused.
Coleman, Cutter, Danielson,
Excused.
Exum, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundin, Marchman, Moreno, Mullica, Pelton B, Pelton R, Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Zenzinger. Mr. President,
Here. The morning roll call is 33 present, 0 absent, 2 excused. We do have a quorum. Will the good senator from Burritoville please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal, Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President. I feel today we're going to get a lot of ayes on this. I move that the Senate Journal of Thursday, February 23rd, 2023 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
That was good. You have heard that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? No. The ayes very much have it. That motion is adopted. Senate Services.
February 24th, correctly printed, Senate Bill 168, 169, 170, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 76, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1071.
Committee reports.
February 23rd, 2023, the Committee on State, Veterans, and Military Affairs, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 154 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1072 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. February 23rd, 2023, the Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1043 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 93 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation, and with the recommendation it be placed on the consent calendar. February 23rd, 2023, the Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 108 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation it be placed on the consent calendar.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Joint Memorial 2.
The motion is to proceed out of order for consideration of memorials. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. We will now proceed out of order. Consideration of memorials. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Joint Memorial 2?
Senate Joint Memorial 2, Senator Roberts, Representative Lukens, memorializing former Senator John Jack Taylor.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of Senate Joint Memorial 2 and ask that it be read at length.
Will the clerk please read Senate Joint Memorial 2 at length?
Senate Joint Memorial 2, Senator Roberts, Representative Lukens, memorializing former Senator John Jack Taylor. Whereas John Jack W. Taylor, the former senator, departed this life on April 22nd, 2022 at the age of 84, and whereas Senator Taylor was born in Chicago, Illinois on November 22nd, 1935 to Harvey and Pauline Taylor, and whereas Senator Taylor grew up on a farm in Auburn, Iowa with his brother Robert before attending Iowa State University, and whereas in college, Senator Taylor was in the Navy ROTC program and played baseball, in which he excelled, being named all-conference at second base and playing for the 1957 Iowa State University varsity baseball team that won the Big Seven Conference Championship and placed third in the College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska. And whereas after college, Senator Taylor joined the Navy and served on an icebreaker ship that participated in the International Geophysical Year operation in Antarctica, an international scientific project that lasted from July 1st, 1957 to December 31st, 1958. And whereas after serving in the Navy, Senator Taylor moved to New Orleans, Louisiana, where he worked for Boeing Aerospace on the Apollo moon landing project. And whereas Senator Taylor also spent time in Kuwait, helping to build and staff the country's first oil refinery before moving to Steamboat Springs, Colorado in 1969, where he established a real estate business and became a partner in a small coal mining operation at Mount Harris. And whereas after moving to Steamboat Springs, Senator Taylor met his wife, Geneva, whom he married in 1973, and whereas Senator Taylor and Geneva had one daughter, Vicky, and two grandchildren, Brianna and Dakin, and whereas Senator Taylor served on several boards and commissions, including the Soda Creek Ditch Board, before running for the state legislature, and whereas in 1992, Senator Taylor was elected to the Colorado House of Representatives, where he served from 1993 to 2000, followed by an 8-year term in the Colorado Senate from 2001 to 2008. And whereas Senator Taylor was a well-respected and well-liked statesman whose legislative career focused on support for the military, wildlife, water, and telecommunications. And whereas Senator Taylor sponsored 252 bills, memorials, and resolutions in his 16 years in the legislature, 201 of which were enacted, including bills on voting, tuition assistance for the National Guard, petroleum storage tanks, creation of the Colorado Tourism Office, waste tire recycling, and enterprise zones, among many others. And whereas Senator Taylor served on the Agriculture and Business Committees in both the House and the Senate and was a member of the Legislative Audit Committee for 12 years, he also served on joint water committees for 10 years, the Joint Police Officers and Firefighters Pension Reform Commission for 5 years, and several interim committees throughout his tenure. And whereas Senator Taylor felt strongly that it was important to fight for Western Slope water, vowing to protect water rights and property rights, and whereas Senator Taylor was also instrumental in providing better telecommunications access in Northwest Colorado, and whereas Senator Taylor also loved working irrigation ditches in his neighborhood and mowing the neighborhood's Strawberry Park roads and some neighbors' driveways with his John Deere tractor. And whereas after serving in the General Assembly, one of Senator Taylor's main activities was participating in the Republican Party, chairing the Routt County Republican Party twice, and partnering with his wife Geneva to chair various Republican campaigns. And whereas Senator Taylor and Geneva were a team, two community leaders who complemented each other and were very strong supporters of the community. And whereas Geneva survived Senator Taylor, but passed away just 6 months later on October 15, 2020, now therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 74th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that in the death of Senator Jack Taylor, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a devoted public servant and an outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the 74th General Assembly, pay tribute to Jack Taylor for his years of dedicated public service and do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family. Be it further resolved that a copy of this joint memorial be sent to Senator Taylor's daughter and son-in-law, Vicki and Trent Bushner of Yuma, Colorado, his granddaughter Brianna Clammer, his grandson David Bushner, and his brother Robert Taylor of Houston, Texas.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. You can take a seat. I'm humbled to be here today as the sponsor of this memorial honoring Senator Jack Taylor. And it's especially honoring for me because Senator, then Representative Jack Taylor, was the first legislator that I ever met here in Colorado. As a kid growing up in Steamboat, I first met then Representative Taylor when he came to the Steamboat Springs Middle School where I was a student. And he talked to us about how important it was to protect Western Slope water and how right he was and still is today. Senator Taylor truly was and will continue to be an institution in Steamboat, where I grew up. He and his wife were pillars of that community, and they cared so much about the town that they called home. And I feel lucky to have gotten to know Senator Taylor in Geneva a little bit during my time here in the legislature. After I was elected to the House, he and his wife were able to give me a hard time every now and then, showing up to town hall meetings that I was holding with Senator Rankin, sending me some emails as constituents about the bills that we were considering down here. But even in that feedback, you could tell that he still cared passionately about the town that he lived in and the state that he had served. And while we came from opposite parties, I always genuinely appreciated the respect and encouragement and advice that he and his wife gave me. And now that I've gotten to know more about Senator Taylor's time here at the Capitol, it's clear that he did that with everybody. He loved his job as a legislator because he got to serve the communities in Northwest Colorado that he loved. And what a legacy he left, from fighting for water rights on the Western Slope to helping start the Colorado Tourism Office and passing bills that expanded voting rights and helped military veterans. Senator Taylor's service to this state has left a huge mark. And further, Geneva's partnership with Jack and leadership in her own way helped our community and so many others as well. So to Jack and Geneva's family, I'm so sorry for your loss, but also want to thank you for sharing them with Steamboat, with Northwest Colorado, and our entire state. And we're all better off because of their service. So thank you all for being here today. I do want to recognize the guests that we have in the chamber with us, and if you could rise when I call out your name. We have Senator Taylor's daughter, Vicki Bushner, and her husband, Trent. Their daughter, Brianna, and son-in-law, John Clammer. Their grandson, Dakin, and granddaughter-in-law, Katie Bushner. And great-grandbaby daughter, Raylan Bushner. We also have close friends of the family, Diane and Art Wolverton. Thank you all for being here.
Further discussion. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I reached out to former President Fitzgerald and mentioned this, and she had knew about it and wished she could be here, but she's out of the state. But she asked me to say some words on her behalf. So she just wanted me to let the family know that Jack Taylor was a very good senator and, more importantly, was a very good man. He represented the Western Slope with integrity, and I was proud to serve with him. So that was from the president that he served with, but just wanted to relay that to the family. Thank you.
Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for bringing this today. I had the honor of serving with Jack Taylor in his last term here in the Senate. Well, serving him, I was on the staff. And I can tell you, he was incredibly sharp, very intelligent, and was very well respected by all, whether it was a majority, minority, no matter what. When he got up to speak, the room did hush down and would listen to every word he said. I'll never forget on Military Appreciation Day, he'd always wear his dress white uniforms and was sharp as a tack. Everything in place, everything perfect. As a young man, just learning this building, trying to figure out how the building worked, he was definitely someone that I looked up to and had great admiration for. So thank you for sharing Senator Taylor with the people of Colorado and with the Senate. We are better off for his service, and thank you for bringing this today.
Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for bringing this today. I spoke with Donna Mint, and he asked me to read this from him for his longtime friend, Jack. In 1992, my longtime friend, Representative Danny Williams, told me that he was not going to seek re-election to House District 56, and he was going to ask Jack Taylor, a Steamboat resident, to run. Over the next 20 years, here are a few things I'd like to share with you. He graduated from college and played in the College World Series. He was in the Navy and wore his dress white uniform to the Capitol on every military day, and he turned some heads. He worked for Boeing Aerospace on the Apollo moon landing project. He moved to Steamboat in 1969 and married Geneva, a steamboat banker. Smart wasn't he? I'm sorry, married Geneva, a steamboat banker. Smart, wasn't he? And he had a daughter, Vicky. He had a real estate business and owned and operated a coal mine. His legislative career spanned 16 years, 8 in the House and 8 in the Senate. He was a big defender of West Slope water, rural access to telecommunication, and always cautioned, before you pass a bill, you need to know how you're going to pay for it. He always felt the most important thing a legislator could do was serving the people who needed somebody to speak for them. Those who visited Jack in Geneva always had to check out his John Deere tractor. And if you wanted to find Jack, look for his old yellow pickup. Rest in peace, my friend. Thank you.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to pay my condolences to the family. I knew Senator Taylor. First, I met him as a county commissioner when I was a county commissioner back in the 90s, and he was a very open individual that you could always approach and talk to about any subject that you wanted to, try and get something done on. He was part of the cowboy group with Senator Ament, Senator Klobuchar, and Senator Wattenberg. I mean, he just had a group of folks that they would surround themselves. I remember one day I was down here as a county commissioner, my first year, and I was on the floor having a discussion about what they called the Christmas tree bill for counties, and they were trying to hang all sorts of things on it, and I was surrounded by these guys. And I'm like going, please, please don't take away our authority. Please don't take away our land use authority. And he's like, and I misremember him and Ament both just giving me the stare down and saying, why not? You guys don't need that. And which is amazing to me because later on, his son-in-law became a county commissioner in Yuma County. So hopefully you worked on him on that. But my favorite story about Senator Taylor is this, because this guy is extremely persistent. And he's a great guy, and he cared about his community to the point where he came to the Department of Local Affairs and wanted $500,000 for a ski jump out of the Energy and Mineral Impact Grant Program. And, when he first approached us, I was like, that's not even close to energy and mineral impact. It's like, what are you talking about? And he was extremely persistent. He just kept at it. He went to the governor, and then he went to who at the time was my boss, Mike Beasley, and he just kept being persistent. And I can remember getting a call from my boss, Mike Beasley. I was in Fort Morgan, and he said, we're going to give that $500,000 to Jack Taylor, so you better figure out how to get that done. So very persistent, always there for his community, great guy, enjoyed working with him.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend Senate Rule 31A for the purpose of allowing former members of the General Assembly to address the body.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. The Senate will stand in recess to hear remarks from former members of the House and the Senate. Members, if you'd like to speak, please feel free to approach the well. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been a long time since I've been here, but Senator Jack Taylor is a very special person. And he represented a very large district and did it very well. It consisted of water, ranching, water, mining, water, tourism, water, and some sheep herding. If you noticed, I said water quite a few times. That was something that Jack was very concerned about and instrumental in protecting water rights, always. He carried bills, you could tell his support by the bills he carried and the votes he took. I had the pleasure of serving with Jack in both the House and the Senate. He was generally a very quiet man, but very, very efficient. And don't think quiet was negative. He was a man of few words to describe him, but I think the word integrity describes him the very best. He was one of the better human beings I have known, a very special person. If all humans were like Jack Taylor, this would be a much better world. Our Jack served in the Navy, as you heard, and that made us comrades because I had a son that served Navy as well. And don't know if you still do Military Day, but we always had one day each year that the military, the veterans, all wore their uniforms to honor their service. When Jack put on his Navy whites, all the females in the Capitol would swoon. He was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, he was. I even had one lobbyist come up to me and say, "Who's that stud?" Everybody thought he was a hunk in his Navy whites. And I understand he was very proud he could still get into them as well. And it was mentioned, Jack drove a yellow truck, very yellow. That's why I wore the yellow sweater. That's how yellow Jack's truck was. You always knew where Jack was. And no one else had a truck just like Jack's. Jack would drive down from Steamboat every Monday morning, and if it snowed, he had to clean his roof off first, and then he drove down to Denver from Steamboat. Bill Artist, who was a representative at one time and a lobbyist, called me. He's in Phoenix, and he asked me to say a few words on Jack on his behalf. He wanted me to remind all that Jack was a huge baseball fan. In fact, he played for the Iowa State Cyclones and was involved in the 1955 College World Series. Jack admitted he was not a great hitter, but he got hot at the right time. He had 8 consecutive hits, a record that stood for some time in that World Series. I say, farewell, my friend. Rest in peace.
Speaker Dean.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this is my first time at this microphone. didn't used to allow House members to speak in the Senate, so thank you for that honor, Mr. President. Jack Taylor was a good friend, and as you've heard, he was also a great legislator. He came to the House 2 years before I did, and I had the opportunity to sit in the back row with him and also to serve with him in my freshman term on the Business Affairs and Labor Committee. And I learned so much from him. We became friends pretty soon, pretty early on. Found out that we both happened to be two boys from small town western Iowa. And so we had a little bit of a link there. And I learned so much from Jack. And Jack taught me that it was a good idea to sometimes temper my enthusiasm for a certain position, and taught me how to be a more effective legislator. He was such a strong advocate for his district, and he impressed that upon all of us. Yes, you have to advocate for your district. And he also impressed upon me how important Northwest Colorado was to the rest of the state as well. And I learned so much from him. He was an early advocate for telecommunications affordability and broadband in rural Colorado, something that stuck with me through my time, my 18 years at the Public Utilities Commission, and he was always an advocate for his constituent. One thing hasn't been mentioned yet is that when he was in the legislature, they hosted a golf tournament. When I first started, it was called the WTG, stood for Wattenberg, Taylor, and George, for the senator and two representatives up there. Later on, it became the TRW, for Taylor, Rippey, and White. And that was such a good time. Of course, this was all before Amendment 41. But they would invite the entire legislature up there, and they'd have a golf tournament, and they'd put you up overnight, and you'd get to go tour the 20 Mile Mine and see all the other things that came from Northwest Colorado, and it was such a great time. To his effectiveness, you've heard it in the resolution. The man passed 80% of his bills. I don't think I did, and I was in leadership. And so you know he was an effective legislator. He was always really willing to reach out across the aisle and carry bipartisan bills. And obviously, if 80% become law, there were good common sense proposals. So he was an honorable man. I loved him and his wife, Geneva. They were a team. She was down here all the time. She was just a wonderful person, and they were just wonderful, a wonderful couple. And I just want to express my condolences to the family. I'll miss your dad. He was a great man, and you should know that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I guess that rule really allows anybody to speak, huh? Senator Brophy.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for suspending the rule to allow me to come back in here. It's an honor to speak to all of you. It's an honor, and it's a wonderful thing to see the family, because they're all my friends. They're all from home. I want to hit on a couple of points that other folks have made. First, the senator from Sterling and the former majority leader mentioned Jack's yellow pickup. That doesn't quite do it justice. It was a god-awful, ugly, one-of-a-kind pickup. And truly, if you saw that pickup, you knew Jack was there and that he was doing some work for his constituents. And I visited with another one of the former majority leaders yesterday about Senator Taylor, and it was funny because he mentioned that he thought Senator Taylor would be remembered as a moderate Republican, and that may be right, but I'm not so sure that that's the case. He wasn't a culture warrior. He wasn't, like some of us, a big Second Amendment advocate, although he was always solid on the issue. He was anything but moderate when it came to the issues that mattered to Western Colorado. When it came to water and tourism and things along those lines, he was a tenacious fighter for his district, and I think he should always be remembered for that. And the former majority leader mentioned that he would, on Military Appreciation Day, come in wearing his dress whites. Now think about this, all of you. He was about 70 years old, and he could still wear his Navy uniform, dress whites, and he did look so good. And he was always a man of good posture, but for some reason, when he was wearing that white uniform, it was even better. Just a vision to see. And I think he might have retired from the seat over there where the senator from Alamosa sits. You guys know, wait, what happened? There used to be some really fun little tags on the fronts of these desks to tell you who retired from that particular seat. Now they're on the floor. Interesting. Oh, inside the desk. Well, thank you. And then finally, the one thing that I want all of you to remember about Senator Taylor, besides the fact that he dearly loved his family, and he talked about you, Vicki, all of the time, and Brianna and Dakin, he was so proud of you too, and we talked about you a lot. We sat beside each other in ag committees. We had plenty of time to talk. He was the consummate gentleman. So when you think about Senator Taylor, think about that. He was absolutely the consummate gentleman. My condolences to the family.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak and say a few words and to pass on my condolences as well. Many of you may not realize, but in 2005, I was Senator Taylor's aide. And I can remember working for him. My very first day was a memorable day. We went out with the Cattlemans for lunch, and here I was, a scrawny college kid, not much money, and we went to this fancy steakhouse. So I looked at the menu and I'm like, oh man, based on a aide's pay, I'm not going to be able to afford much. So I ordered a side salad. Now remember, we're with the Cattlemen. Senator Taylor ordered a giant porterhouse steak. He cuts it in half, puts half on my plate, and he said, no aide of mine is going to starve during the session. That's the type of person Senator Taylor was. He was incredibly generous. He was incredibly kind. He was a person who very much was a statesman, and I learned a lot from Senator Taylor. I can remember his passion, his long phone calls that he would have in his office, where he would be trying to push. I remember we were working on a water bill that year, and just constant phone calls back and forth with his district. But I remember one call in particular that came through. It was from his wife, Geneva. She was asking about snow tires, and he was in a meeting with the governor. So I delayed getting him the message. And he also had a temper. He had a temper like a lion. And I experienced that side of Senator Taylor as well. And he told me, if my wife calls, I don't care if I'm meeting with the Pope or the President of the United States or the governor, he said, you come flying in and you give me that message because she's the most important person to me in this world. And that was true. That was definitely true. One thing I'll never forget also about Senator Taylor was he had a cell phone, but he refused to have any names and contacts plugged into that because he was old school. So instead, every single day or every other day, we would print off an updated contact list, and he would fold it, stick it in his jacket pocket. And by the end of the session, his jacket pocket was a pretty big bulge. I always figured it could serve as some sort of like heater because there was enough insulation from all the paper there as well. But he had that old school charm. And that's what made Senator Taylor Senator Taylor. He truly was a statesman, he was a gentleman, but he had been a boss of mine, but he was also a friend and a mentor, and someone that I came to respect very, very deeply and thought very much of, and was very sad. I tried to get up to see him again, but unfortunately, it was too late during the pandemic. I appreciate being able to say these few words, and thank you.
Senator Blickensderfer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senators, for allowing us to say a few things about our friend Jack. Jack Taylor started in the House of Representatives the same year that I came over here to the Senate in 1992. You can always tell a person's integrity and capacity as a legislator, not so much by what his colleagues will say in the House he's serving, but in the other House. And I can tell you that those of us in the Senate who always wanted a reliable fellow believer, I guess is the best way to put it, on our bills, would go to Jack Taylor. We lined up so that we could have Jack as our House sponsor. And you just wanted him there. He was diligent, he was thoughtful, and he gave your piece of legislation his all. And furthermore, he would also give you constructive suggestions on how to make it better, what to take out, what to keep in. And that was always an added bonus. He was, in fact, what I'd call a legislator's legislator. And I certainly do miss him. I remember his coming over to visit us at the Joint Budget Committee on various water issues and that sort of thing. And he always had a good point. He may not have had the votes or the numbers, but he always had a good point. And of course, I always will never forget the dress whites. Thank you for a moment to speak about Jack.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion for the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 2 and request a roll call vote.
The motion is the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 2. Will the clerk please poll the members?
Senators. Baisley. Baisley, aye. Bridges. Bridges, aye. Buckner, excused. Coleman. Coleman, aye. Cutter. Cutter, aye. Danielson, excused. Exum. Exum, aye. Fields. Fields, aye. Gardner. Gardner, aye. Janal. Janal, aye. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Hanson. Hanson, aye. Hinrichsen. Hinrichsen, aye. Hawkes Lewis. Hawkes Lewis, aye. Kirkmeyer. Kirkmeyer, aye. Kolker. Kolker, aye. Liston. Liston, aye. Lundin. Lundin, aye. Marchman. Marchman, aye. Moreno. Moreno, aye. Mullica. Mullica, aye. Pelton B. Pelton B, aye. Pelton R. Pelton R, aye. Priola. Priola, aye. Rich. Rich, aye. Roberts.
Aye.
Roberts, aye. Rodriguez. Rodriguez, aye. Simpson. Simpson, aye. Smallwood. Smallwood, aye. Sullivan. Sullivan, aye. Van Winkle. Van Winkle, aye. Will. Will, aye. Winter. Winter, aye. Zenzinger. Zenzinger, aye. Anderson. Anderson, aye. Blickensderfer. Blickensderfer, aye. Brophy. Brophy, aye. Mr. President. President, aye.
With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Joint Memorial is adopted. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors on Senate Joint Memorial 2. We will now stand in a brief recess to allow members to greet the family. Prior to that, though, we will observe a brief moment of silence, and the chimes of the Senate will ring. The Senate will stand in a brief recess. The Senate will come back to order. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of a moment of personal privilege by a number of senators for a tribute to the country of Ukraine and organizations supporting their sovereignty.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to ask for a moment of personal privilege, if I may, and read a tribute to the people of Ukraine and Ukraine Power in particular.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate of the Colorado Legislature convened in this first regular session of the 74th General Assembly hereby extends our heartiest commendation to Ukraine Power. The members of the Colorado State Senate recognize and commend Ukraine Power on the 24th of February 2023. The nation of Ukraine was invaded without cause or provocation by Russian armed forces. In the months since then, incessant Russian bombardments have left Ukrainian towns and cities in ruins, with schools, hospitals, places of worship, and homes having been reduced to heaps of rubble. As a result of targeted Russian attacks, an estimated 1.5 million Ukrainian households are without power, running water, and heat at a time when the average temperature is between 17 and 32 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Colorado Springs-based 501c3 Ukraine Power has mobilized to deliver generators, heaters, propane tanks, tools, and supplies for community charging stations, including Wi-Fi towers, surge suppressors, and equipment to allow Ukrainians to stay in touch with the Western world. In the years to come, Ukraine Power's focus will shift according to the needs of the people of the Luhansk region and is likely to include an increased focus on support for wounded Ukrainians, resettlement efforts, and infrastructure repairs. The Colorado State Senate recognizes and commends Ukraine Power for their efforts in alleviating the suffering of Ukrainians abroad, as well as their advocacy on behalf of the sizable population of Ukrainians who currently reside here in Colorado. This is on the request of Senators Larry Liston and my colleague, Senator Bob Gardner, given this 24th day of February 2023 at the state capitol of Colorado. Senator Gardner?
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. Colleagues, on the 24th of February 2022, Russian troops invaded Ukraine. On that day, if you will recall, and those of you here probably do recall, the uncertainty of what that next 48 or 72 hours would bring. Because while Ukraine is the largest country by land area and a country of 45 million people in Europe, it was invaded by what was regarded and still in many ways regarded as one of the foremost military powers in the world. It's former Soviet Union, Russia. I want to remind everyone that over that day, 2 days, and 3 days, the future of Ukraine, and in a very real way, the future of our world was at stake. Brave Ukrainians, in defense of their homeland, did extraordinary things to turn the tide and to prevent the capital city of Kyiv from being occupied. And then, as the West awoke and Ukrainians defended, the tide began to turn in a way that I think no one expected on the 24th of February, 2022. When President Zelensky said, and I'm not sure I'll have the words right, "I need ammunition, I don't need a ride," he expressed the courage of all Ukrainians to defend their homeland. Now, understand that Ukraine shares a common cultural heritage with Russia. There's no doubt about that. The history of Russia is bound up and starts in Kyiv. But there is a difference. I know this personally because in 2014 I had the privilege and unique experience of being an international election observer for both Ukrainian elections in 2014. And when I went to polls to observe, what I saw were families, old people, young people, on a Sunday. Elections in Europe are typically on Sundays. People bringing their children from church to stand in line to vote because they desperately wanted a functioning democracy. They look west. And because they look west, and because they want and are losing their lives daily for democracy and freedom, Vladimir Putin cannot allow them to exist. Because there is this narrative that the Slavs are different and somehow they need strongman government, not democracy. They're different than the West. The Ukrainians have rejected that. They've rejected that as a matter of their history and their choices since the wall fell. There are some in our country, people of good faith and of discernment as well, who believe that the West cannot continue sending resources, ammunition, aid, medical supplies to Ukraine. We cannot continue, they say. I say to them, we must continue. The future of the world, and that sounds melodramatic, but it is not. The future of the world in which we and our children will live in, is being decided every day in Ukraine. And it will be decided for us with Ukrainian blood and with Western arms and all of our resolve. We owe a debt of gratitude to the people of Ukraine, a debt of gratitude for their sacrifice, and for that we owe them our commitment to see this through until the end, until they are victorious. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few concluding remarks. From day one, Russia and its military have been waging a senseless war on the innocent people of Ukraine. From the start, Russia has been targeting innocent civilians and using genocidal tactics against the civilian population. Conservative estimates suggest that the combined civilian combatant death toll exceeds 240,000, an amount which includes many innocent women and children. In addition to the thousands of fatalities, 8 million Ukrainians have been uprooted and displaced since the beginning of the invasion, resulting in the worst refugee crisis that Europe has seen since World War II. In particular, Russia has targeted the utility infrastructure of Ukraine, destroying countless power plants, waterworks, and much of the utility grid of Ukraine. This has left millions of people without heat, electricity, or water. Russia is hoping to break the will and the spirit of the Ukrainian people. They will not succeed. Due to the efforts of the organizations such as Ukraine Power, the people in war-torn areas of Ukraine are not able to have heat, power, or survive the extreme colds of this winter. The hard work and dedication of people like Yana Malik, who is here today, and other patriotic Ukrainians on the front lines in Ukraine since early December has resulted in over 50 generators, 130 heaters, and hundreds of alternative power sources being delivered to the people of war-ravaged Ukraine. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Mark and Whitney Luckett, who have worked closely with the Malik family and their efforts to get tangible aid directly to the people in the Luhansk region of Ukraine, which is on the front lines where the war is ravaging right now. The Luhansk region represents the front lines where the war is currently taking place. These selfless and patriotic people have worked tirelessly for the last several months to deliver critical supplies to the embattled citizens of Ukraine. They are truly doing the Lord's work. Last but not least, I want to thank our own United States government for supplying critical military supplies to the brave men and women who are fighting on the front lines of Ukraine. The critical military equipment has enabled the armed forces of Ukraine to thwart the Russian aggression, and we should all be proud that we stood with the people of Ukraine to defend their sovereignty. I would also like to thank our own Jamia Meller-Lindquist and Mr. Jerry Johnson somewhere upstairs, who have graciously lent their help and support for this tribute. In conclusion, fellow colleagues and honored guests, we are here to honor and thank these noble patriots who are standing up for defending their country against tyranny and aggression of a belligerent country such as Russia and the forces of darkness. God bless Ukraine Power, its supporters, and the work they are doing to help the people of Ukraine. Thank you very much. I'll come back and read this.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like a moment of personal privilege, please.
Granted.
I'd like to read a tribute to the Ukrainians of Colorado. The members of the Colorado State Senate recognize and commend the members of the Ukrainians of Colorado. Founded by a group of Coloradans of Ukrainian descent in 2014, Ukrainians of Colorado began with a mission to support immigrants and visitors from Ukraine. After Russian armed forces invaded Ukraine and launched unprovoked attacks on civilian targets, the members of Ukrainians for Colorado immediately began mobilizing friends, neighbors, community organizations, and local businesses to help meet the immediate needs of this community. Through a series of unique fundraising events, Ukrainians of Colorado have raised thousands of dollars in charitable contributions and built a strong supply pipeline that directly supports those impacted by the attack. The Colorado State Senate recognizes and commends Ukrainians of Colorado for their efforts in alleviating the suffering of Ukrainians abroad, as well as their advocacy on behalf of the sizable population of Ukrainians who currently reside in Colorado. On the request of Senators Lisa Cutter and Joanne Janal, given this 21st day of February 2023.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. Colleagues,
I wish we weren't here today. I wish it were a little bit different than it is, but today marks 1 year since Russia illegally invaded Ukraine. 1 year since Putin launched an attack on a free and democratic nation. 1 year and hundreds of thousands of lives that have been lost and millions that have been displaced. There's been no end in sight to the fighting or the suffering, and as we recently closed out the holiday season, Russian forces continued their strikes on Ukrainian cities. At a time that is usually festive, full of life and love and songs and laughter, I know Ukrainians love to celebrate the holidays. Instead, they spent their holidays in bomb shelters and mourning the loss of their loved ones. There's much that can be said about Putin and Russia's war of aggression, but on the anniversary of this invasion, I want to focus on the Ukrainian people. Their courage and their sacrifice and their spirit, their strength has rang across the globe in the face of tremendous horrors, unimaginable horrors. I myself am Ukrainian. I'm Polish and I'm Russian. My grandparents on both sides immigrated in the early 1900s to Ellis Island, and they settled in New England for a better life. They worked long hours in textile mills and in shoe factories and saved their money to bring their family that they left over to America in hopes of that. And they also sent money back to what they used to call the old country. I remember holidays where the dialect was so similar between Ukrainians, the Poles, and the Russians, even though they had a different, they said they were either Russian or Polish or Ukrainian, they all understood each other because their dialect was so similar. And I wish I could remember those days, and I wish I could look back, and I wish my dad was still alive so he could tell me more about it. And I wish I knew their reasons for coming to America then. Was it religion, opportunity? Was it political? And probably there were other reasons that played into the fact that they actually made that very hard decision to leave their large families, and they had lots of brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, parents that they left to come here, to be able to hopefully bring them over to America someday. But it didn't happen, at least not too often. Ukrainians, I can say from my heart, are proud, they're strong, they're stubborn, they're relentless, and they've demonstrated for the past year their tenacity during the most trying of times. Their fierce spirit is the very thing that inspired so many people, so many institutions, so many organizations, such as the people that are here today, to mobilize the effort in help Ukrainians upon this invasion. We have one of those organizations here with us today, and I'm honored to welcome the Ukrainians of Colorado to the Senate. Ukrainians of Colorado have been raising funds since the start of the war to aid in humanitarian crises. The funds that they raise go directly to medical supplies and transportation costs, which are delivered to bordering countries and then taken to hospitals and medical centers in Ukraine. Ukrainians of Colorado are committed to raising awareness about Ukraine in our state and beyond, and their tremendous work has positively impacted so many in need of aid and inspired so many to help this humanitarian crisis. I want to thank some folks here today, Marina Dubrova, Irina Shatilov, Kristia Losyanovich, and everyone else that's here with the Ukrainians of Colorado for being here and for your selfless, undaunted work. We are so grateful for your presence here in Colorado, and we know Ukrainians are grateful for your help abroad. So as this war rages on, Ukrainians will remain undeterred, unavowed, unbroken. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who climbed into worldwide leadership a year ago, has transformed into a figure of strength, resistance, and courage in the face of insurmountable odds. Ukrainians have put their lives on the line, literally, to defend their homes and their democracy. And they have inspired millions while uniting the world against a dictator who has made his final and fatal mistake. I stand with my people of the Ukraine. I know we all stand with the people of Ukraine. God bless Ukraine, and God bless its people. Thank you, Mr. President, for the time.
Senator Cutter.
Another moment of personal privilege, please.
Granted.
It's really good to be here united in this chamber in support of the Ukrainians. And I'm so proud to represent Lakewood in the Colorado Senate. Lakewood is the home, or part of Lakewood, I should say. Lakewood is the home for the Ukrainians of Colorado, one of the 3 organizations we honor today. And it's really impressive to me that they are all volunteers. That is, we work hard and take a lot of pride and pleasure in the work we do here in the Senate for our constituents, but what you're doing as volunteers to support people with such basic and important human needs is a true service to humanity, and we're all so grateful for that. All of the money they raise goes to their work in Colorado before or now to support the humanitarian efforts. So they were founded in 2014 to promote and protect the Ukrainian culture, and many of the volunteer members were born in Ukraine and still maintain, of course, contact with friends and family. And so once the war started, they mobilized and heard from loved ones about what they needed, and they got to work to provide it. Among many worthwhile programs, you've heard about some of them, but they work with Project Cure, which raised more than $150,000 to provide medical supplies. Working with the Denver Zoo, this is lovely, they have provided more than $50,000 for the zoo's Wildlife Emergency Fund, which went to 3 major zoos in Ukraine. They equip schools with bomb shelters, providing water, basic furniture, school supplies, and toys, or they relocate school children from the immediate war zone to safer parts of the country. They provide support to relocate state orphanages. And even though they're based in Lakewood, they organize community service and fundraising projects with partners in many locations throughout Colorado, including Boulder, Aurora, Arvada, Avon, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, and Denver. These fundraising projects range from cooking classes, art auctions, Easter market fairs, and Ukrainian festivals, trivia contests, digital fundraising projects, and so on. I want to urge you, those things all sound wonderful and a great way to support the community, so I want to urge you to check out the organization's website at www.ukrainiansofcolorado.com. And then you can learn about all the upcoming events like the rally tomorrow right here at the state capitol, followed by a community gathering at Thin Man Tavern in Denver, an Easter market fair on April 1st, a fundraising gala on May 28th, and a Ukrainian festival on August 19th. That's just a little bit about of some of the things that they're doing. So please go to the website and see how you can support them. It's hard to believe that it's been a year and since this war started, and I can't imagine the pain of seeing your beloved home torn apart by this needless violence and conflict. All Ukrainians here and abroad have inspired us with your determination, your resiliency, and your heart. Thank you.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we have a tribute here to an organization called Pallets for Ukraine. I will read the tribute, and then my colleague from Central Denver will have a couple of comments. The members of the Colorado State Senate commend the McFarlane family and their organization, Pallets for Ukraine, for their dedication and generosity to those in need. When Russian armed forces invaded the independent and sovereign nation of Ukraine without provocation 1 year ago today, the McFarlane family were among the hundreds of thousands of people that were left shocked and dismayed by the attack. A woodworker, John McFarlane, enlisted the help of his son Jonathan, his granddaughter Adelaide, his wife's garden club, and friends and neighbors to transform donated wooden pallets into unique signs designed to look like the Ukrainian flag. The McFarlane family spread the word that in exchange for each contribution to Ukraine, the donor would receive a pallet flag. In less than a year, this project has distributed more than 700 flags and raised over $23,000 to support those impacted by the invasion. Through the Pallets for Ukraine project, the McFarlanes proved that one small group of people are capable of making a profound impact in the lives of those in need. We commend all those involved in the Pallets for Ukraine project for their dedication, generosity, and resourcefulness.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
I wanted to show the amazing pallet flags. Many of you may remember that early in the conflict there was a rush of Americans that wanted to buy a Ukrainian flag to fly it in front of their home. And they were gone at the stores. And this is just such an incredible idea to quickly respond to that desire to help and a desire to show that support on your front lawn. Incredible idea. And I'm so proud to be here today to join Majority Leader in honoring the McFarlanes in their work and the money that they raised and the heartfelt grassroots effort that they led. And I think as we think about where we are in this conflict now 1 year on, I also want to recognize the other incredible thing that happened here this morning was that it was Republicans and Democrats here at the well, and the exact same thing happening in Washington, D.C. There is bipartisan consensus that we will not abandon the Ukrainians. And all of us are going to have to continue to work at that. That is something that will require continued commitment, which is clear here at the 1 year mark of this terrible, terrible war. It's a trial for democracy. It is a trial for the decades of the NATO partnership and how that evolves and changes to meet this new threat. And it starts at the neighborhood. Talk about that today, to honor that, to remember where we are 1 year on, and that we have continued work to do. And I thank the McFarlane family for their amazing effort to raise money to respond to this humanitarian crisis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hansen.
Sorry, Mr. President, if I may continue my moment of personal privilege, I wanted to introduce the family. Thank you. Joining us today, John McFarlane and his wife, Vicki, his son, Jonathan, and daughter-in-law, Erica, and their beautiful daughter, Adelaide, as well as Jonathan's mother, Donna. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your incredible work on behalf of this effort.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not to be a pest, if I can request another moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, it doesn't quite work out to be able to hear directly from our honored guests here, but I would like to read what one of them, and I'm sure that she speaks for all of the Ukrainian people, not only here, but in the country. This is from one of our good guests, in fact, the founder of Ukraine Power, Yana Malik. And if she could be here and say what she would like to say, this is what she would say. On February 24th, exactly 1 year ago at 4:46 a.m., my family was awakened by loud explosions. These were the first bombs that fell near my house in Savatovo, a small town in the Luhansk region of eastern Ukraine, just 40 miles from the Russian border. The shells were sent to kill our people. Quickly collecting things, we left the house 10 minutes later, taking only a couple of suitcases with us It was very dangerous, and we couldn't safely remain since our family has fought for freedom and independence to keep Russia from occupying the town since the first war in 2014. It took us 3 days to drive to the relative safety of Western Ukraine, and what we experienced and what we saw will stay in our memories forever. In just a few moments, we lost everything. We lost everything. But the most important thing that we have saved is our lives and the lives of our children. Exactly 1 year ago today, the Ukrainian people were plunged into horror of the war. Many lost loved ones, their homes, and their usual happy lives, but no one lost faith in victory and independence. Every day my heart breaks into pieces, seeing all the horrors that Putin's aggression has brought to my country. But Ukrainians are strong people willing to fight for its independence. And it is Ukraine that is now a shield for the whole world, and Ukraine will save the world for all of us. Each one of us is fighting this war. Some from the front lines, some are working to make sure that the world knows the truth of this war. Others cook food or provide clothes for the military, and some bring warmth and help maintain a normal life for civilians by sending generators and heaters and lamps. All of us are working together to make a real difference to the lives of Ukrainians. We are all a great force on the way to victory and democracy. It is a great honor for me, Yana, and her people to speak about Ukraine here today. I express my deepest gratitude to all the American people for supporting Ukraine. You are incredible. Slava Ukraine. And that is what Mr. President Yana would like to say on behalf of all of her people. And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the people from Ukraine Power. Mr. Casey Jones, if you just raise your hand. Whitney and Mark Luckett, please raise your hand. Yana Malik and her daughter Lisa Malik, welcome. And with that, Mr. President, with the representatives from the three groups that we identified, if they would make their way around here, they have a special presentation that they would like to give to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, senators, and for all of our guests here. We will obviously find a great place to display this proudly, to represent our partnership and solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Thank you so much. Senator Liston.
Mr. President, with your permission, would it be proper to allow a few minutes for the body to meet our honored guests?
Yes, of course. The Senate will stand in a brief recess to meet our guests.
Thank you.
Members, we are coming back to order. Third reading of bills, final passage.
When do I put my hand up?
Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 76?
Senate Bill 76, Senators Coleman and Marchman, Representative McLaughlin and Vigil, concerning the continuation of the Colorado Youth Advisory Council and in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 76 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 76. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 76 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader, Senator Bridges, Senator Zinzinger, Senator Mullica, Senator Exum, Roberts, Hansen, Simpson, Janal, Hawkes-Lewis, Cutter, Winter. Governor's appointments. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over the General Order's second reading calendar to Monday, February 27th.
The motion is to move the second reading of bills, General Orders calendar to Monday, February 27th. I'm trying to go back in time. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Man, I don't know what it is, but I feel like the ayes have it, and we will lay over to the 27th. Consideration of the governor's appointments, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Member of the Uninsured Employee Board for a term expiring September 1st, 2025, Roger Allen Hayes of Aurora, Colorado, to serve as a representative of employers reappointed. Member of the State Plumbing Board for a term expiring July 1st, 2026, Justin Guerrero of Greenwood Village, Colorado, a person engaged in the construction of residential or commercial buildings as a plumbing contractor, appointed. Members of the State Electrical Board for terms expiring July 1st, 2025, Christopher Butler of Highlands Ranch, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the public at large, reappointed. Alva Diane Lynch of Commerce City, Colorado, to serve as an electrical contractor who has master's license, reappointed for a term expiring July 1st, 2024, Jeremy Sanchez of Loveland, Colorado, to serve as a general contractor of professional allocation by the resignation of James Selicki of Denver, Colorado, appointed. Member of the Advisory Committee to the Property Tax Administrator for a term expiring September 1st, 2026, Keith Allen Erfmeyer of Parker, Colorado, to serve as an assessor from a county with a population over 75,000 and as an unaffiliated reappointed. Members of the Middle Income Housing Authority for terms expiring September 1st, 2024, Tamara Pogue of Dillon, Colorado, to serve as an elected county commissioner from a rural county, appointed. Hillary Cooper of Telluride, Colorado, to serve as an elected county commissioner, appointed. Jackie Millett of Lone Tree, Colorado, appointed for terms expiring September 1st, 2025. Darren Everett of Denver, Colorado, appointed. Thomas Bryan of Centennial, Colorado, appointed. Keo Frazier of Denver, Colorado, appointed. Dominique Acevedo of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a nonprofit organization that has experience in developing middle-income housing, appointed. Carl Coble of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative with experience in the development of rental houses, appointing. Members of the State Board of Human Services, effective March 1st, 2023, for terms expiring March 1st, 2027. Tamara Pogue of Dillon, Colorado, to serve as a county commissioner, reappointed. Jennifer McDonald of Los Animas, Colorado, to serve as a county commissioner, reappointed. John Cafalas of Fort Collins, Colorado, to serve as a county commissioner, reappointed. Correction. Middle Income Housing Authority for terms expiring September 1st, 2026. Chad Asark of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative with experience in real estate transactions. Appointed Peter Lafari of Littleton, Colorado, to serve as the Director of Local Housing Organization. Appointed Mike Johnson of Tabernash, Colorado, to serve as a representative with experience in public financing. Appointed.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments listed on the consent calendar, which includes the member of the Uninsured Employer Board, the member of the State Plumbing Board, the members of the State Electrical Board, the member of the Advisory Committee to the Property Tax Administrator, and the members of the Middle Income Housing Authority.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the confirmation of all the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes on the consent calendar? With 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, those appointments are confirmed. Announcements. Committee reports.
February 23rd, 2023, Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar confirmed. Members of the Colorado Commission on the Aging for terms expiring September 1st, 2024, Veronica Rooks of Thornton, Colorado, to serve as a Democrat from the 8th Congressional District appointed. February 23rd, 2023, Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Colorado Commission on the Aging for terms expiring September 1st, 2024, Adam Dempsey of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a Democrat from the 1st Congressional District appointed. Kimberly Bryant of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a representative of a long-term residential care setting and as an unaffiliated appointed. Lynn Thompson of Center, Colorado, to serve as a representative of local government and a Democrat from the 3rd Congressional District appointed. James Kimmerly of Lockwood, Colorado, to serve as a Republican from the 4th Congressional District appointed. Kathleen Saros Smith of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a person with a disability and an unaffiliated from the 5th Congressional District appointed. Jacqueline Stiff of Centennial, Colorado, to serve as a Democrat from the 6th Congressional District appointed. Karen Brown of Arvada, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the business community and an unaffiliated from the 7th Congressional District appointed. Veronica Rooks of Thornton, Colorado, to serve as a Democrat from the 8th Congressional District appointed. Gina Viola Brown of Golden, Colorado, to serve as a representative of elder law with experience in aging policy of elder rights issues and as a Democrat appointed for terms expiring September 1st, 2025. Ellen Taxman of Boulder, Colorado, to serve as a Democrat from the 2nd Congressional District appointed. Diana Delgado of Tacano, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the housing sector and as an unaffiliated appointed. Chad Federwitz of Carbondale, Colorado, to serve as a representative of an organization providing home and community-based service as an unaffiliated appointed. Richard McClintock of Inglewood, Colorado, to serve as a representative with knowledge of transportation and infrastructure and services and as a Republican appointed. Kelly Osthoff of Greeley, Colorado, to serve as a representative with expertise in dimension as a Republican appointed. Jody Waterhouse of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of higher education and as a Democrat appointed. Penny Whitney of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the direct care workforce and as an unaffiliated appointed.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing no announcements, okay. I move that the Senate adjourn until Monday, February 27th at 10 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, February 27, 2023.